In June of 2023, a tragic collision at the intersection of Highways 1 and 5 near the community of Carberry took 17 lives and injured 8 others. It was neither the first nor the last accident to happen in that location, and in January of 2024, the Government of Manitoba made a $12 million commitment to improve the intersection. Since that time, research and public consultations have been ongoing, including this most recent one in Carberry, where the team introduced and elaborated on the final 3 options they have arrived at. Those options are the widened intersection, which will allow traffic to proceed across one lane of the divided highway before proceeding across the next, even for very large vehicles like semis. The split intersection, which is similar to the widened intersection but offers even more space between the 2 lanes. And the reduced conflict U-turn, or R-cut, which prevents traffic from crossing the divided highway directly and directs them into the traffic flow along the highway before making a U-turn a short distance further from the intersection and returning along the other side. We are 3/4 of the way through the engagement process as of this meeting. There will be one final consultation where the recommended option will be presented and public feedback is again collected, after which it will be submitted to the provincial government for approval. Actual work on the intersection is expected to take place over the summer of 2026.
Okay, thank you. Everybody can hear me okay? No, that's not perfect. Okay, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming back. If you were at the last meeting or the last meetings, I got a show of hands if this is your first meeting. Wow, okay. Welcome here. Yeah, we've had a couple of meetings so far, so do not fear if this is your first meeting because we're going to recap everything that was talked about in the previous meeting. So you'll get up to speed with your neighbors who have been in attendance before even the previous round of engagement. As I mentioned, I'm Donovan Taves. Our company is Landmark Planning. We're land use planners, and so we're a part of the team that Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure has hired, which is a normal course of action. They don't do everything in-house. They have to hire people who do certain things to help them, including engineers, among others. And in a moment, we'll introduce our team. Before we do that, there's 2 things I'd like to cover off. One is land acknowledgement, and the other is a moment of silence for the victims of the collision several years ago. So I'd like to have a moment of silence, please.
We acknowledge that we are gathered on Treaty 2 territory and that Manitoba is located on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota, Oweite, Peninsula, and Lehan Nations. We acknowledge that Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Community. We acknowledge that Northern Manitoba includes land that were and are the ancestral land of the community. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and remain committed to working in a partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people as we walk the shared path of truth and reconciliation.
Great, thank you, Denise. And again, thanks for coming to spend the evening with us. We are about 3/4 of the way through our process. And our process is one in which we study all possible options for what would work well at this intersection or changes to make it safer, and then make recommendations to Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure. From here on, I'll just say MTI because that's it. So we'll make those recommendations and then a decision will get made. Today, no decision is made. At this stage, we're actually sharing 3 shortlisted options and giving everybody a little more detail of what those options look like. And secondly, we're showing how we're thinking about those options and how those will be evaluated in order to make a recommendation. So people can see transparently what the thinking is in terms of each of those options, what the advantages and disadvantages are. You're free to agree or not agree with how we're looking at it, and any of the feedback in that respect is welcome. So it's not certainly won't be a decision that's made based on popularity. As you can appreciate, you can't make decisions in the highway system based on popularity. It has to be based on the appropriateness for that intersection application. So I'm going to ask each of our team members to introduce themselves. We just have some of them here. A project of this scale, it takes a lot of people. So there's lots of people who aren't here, but we've got a team of people to help present the information and they'll also help answer questions. Our objective is to make sure everybody at minimum understands the process, understands how the options would look and how they would function, understands how we're evaluating, and then let us know about that process and what you think of that evaluation process. And any other details you would like to let us know locally, that's information that's always helpful to us, so that we don't miss anything, that we can make a good recommendation. And a lot of times in these meetings, people think we're not listening, it's not correct. We are listening, we want to know what you know. But if we don't give you an answer, if we give you an answer that doesn't match what you think should be done, that's okay. But it doesn't mean that we can make everybody happy with the thing they think should be done. But at minimum, we should know what the lay of the land is, and we should be able to see that we take that into account, whether we end up agreeing or not agreeing on a particular solution. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic, and each person can stand up and say who you are and your role in the team. And then the agenda is for me to share a presentation. It's about probably 40 minutes of talking, but there's lots of material, so I'm sure everyone will be able to wade through that. And there's a short video at the end that will help explain the three shortest options as well. So I'm going to start here.
Hi, my name is Carolina and I'm a planner with Development Planning and Design.
Hi everyone, I'm Denise Steubenville. I'm the Technical Services Engineer for the Western Region with MTI.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Watt. I'm a traffic engineer with MTI.
Evening, everybody. My name is Larry Malenko. I'm a senior manager with WSP, the engineering firm. I have to do the design on the intersection, and my role is the project manager for the design.
I'm very nice to see you here. My name is Diana Emerson. I'm a transportation planning engineer with WSP, and my role on this project has been transportation planning.
Well, I'm Devin Lowe with WSP. I'm a road design engineer.
Great, thanks. And we have Lauren, she is a planner planning as well. Okay, so we're going to jump into the presentation. There's about 35 or 40 slides. And again, it's intended to help everybody understand what our scope of work is, what the options look like, how we're evaluating those options, and how we intend to make a recommendation. So that will come at our next and last round of meetings in the next 2 months. Okay, that first slide just says welcome, which is everything that I mentioned already. But the bottom bullet there, the intent of this engagement is to provide project updates, to share short-listed alternatives, as I mentioned, to share further evaluation of intersection alternatives, and then to share details of next steps. We introduce ourselves, so we'll skip this one. So the goal of the functional study is to identify design. And I mentioned a few times, I'll say it a few more times, that will improve intersection safety and the support location. Everybody, I'm sure, is aware of the history here of June 2023, the collision that occurred and the loss of life that occurred at that time. And so Manitoba wants to make this intersection safe. This slide is helpful for understanding the location in part. So what you're seeing is southern Manitoba. It shows the PTH1 highway going from west to east or east to west across the province, and then Highway 75 as well. And what it's showing along the way is all the at-grade intersections, and the dots represent volume collision ratio. So you can see where the study section is. The largest dots represent the highest combination of volume and collision rate. The orange ones are step down from there, and the blue ones are step down from there, and then many of the at-grade intersections would have lower rates yet. So not a commentary on how important this intersection is, just the lay of the land in terms of the PTH1 infrastructure and intersections across the province. This slide is about the process, so you can see there at the top, round 1, 2A, 2B, which is where we are, and round 3, which will occur, as I mentioned, in summer, likely in June, but we'll narrow that timeline down in the next few weeks. Round one, for those who weren't in attendance, was just to say hello. I.e., introduce the project, receive input, and that input is what are the things that are important to people, what are the factors that we should consider. Again, not which intersection should we do, so we won't be asking for a vote about what type of intersection should be done. We need to know things that are local that we should understand, anything that is a gap to our understanding so we can do a better job recommending a good intersection treatment for this location. After round one, we developed alternatives as a team. We came back, again, for those who weren't there in round 2A, we shared that whole range of alternatives, which we'll recap here today as well. And then we shared how we would be evaluating it. We asked people, are there other things that we should consider when we're evaluating? Sometimes these evaluations, over the years of doing this, are, sometimes don't take into account things non-engineering. In the past, we've gotten better at incorporating both engineering considerations and things that are non-engineering considerations. And you'll see those in the chart. So after 2A, we incorporated that feedback into the evaluation. We're here at 2B, sharing, as I mentioned, those shortlisted alternatives and describing them to you. And after today, we'll feel really strong about being in a position to recommend a preferred alternative. And we'll call it preferred alternative because after we make a recommendation, it goes upstairs and then a decision has to be made above where we make the recommendations. And once we have that, we'll come back a third time and share that preferred alternative. And then that again positions the project for tendering construction. Lots of people that take an interest in projects like this. We work on highways and bridges and hydro and all the major infrastructure to get electricity from your homes because there's a tower somewhere that's been put on somebody's land, for example. You use the highways, used to be farmland, municipal roads used to be land. So every time there's a new thing that's happening, there's some sort of interest and some sort of impact. So we don't take that lightly. You can imagine that we try to avoid that at all costs, is impacting, but it's impossible. There's always some kind of impact. Of course, there's always some benefit as well. These things don't benefit us. We travel on those roads, we get to where we want to go, we get our electricity. So there's impacts and benefits, and this is a list of groups that in some way, shape, or form are either impacting or benefiting from a project like this. So the families, of course, that we noted, local residents and landowners, emergency service providers, agricultural operations, potato industry groups, stuff of this sort. The Manitoba Trucking Association, rights holders, local municipalities, business owners, school divisions, we're in school, lots of kids here, utilities in the vicinity, local trail recreation groups, and others. So we're not blind to these, it's quite the opposite. We are reaching out to everybody to make sure that we understand all of those perspectives. What are the things we need to be thinking about? So what are the things that we need to be thinking about? We think of a lot of these things, but some of them get either confirmed or added to our list when we're working on projects like this. Safety and collision history is obviously paramount. Traffic operations, including traffic flow, again, obviously very important. All of these are important. Local land use and access patterns, impact to surrounding lands and residences. It's existing infrastructure, that's whatever's there, be mindful of what's there, trying to make use of what's there, or impacting other infrastructure, pipes and so forth. Utilities, pipes. Environmental impacts, cultural or heritage considerations. I think there may be archaeological things we have to think about. Some of the options go on new land that doesn't have a highway on it now. What's there, what doesn't there. Emergency access and services. I know our emergency crews out here have been diligent in participating in this process, which we appreciate. Capital and maintenance costs. So sometimes people say cost is the only consideration. It's not the case. Cost is a consideration. So we rely, if we said we weren't thinking about costs, everyone has to think about costs. We all think about costs in our daily budgets at home, and we do it in the budget as well. But it's not always a deciding factor. And the C costs come up in the chart that we're going to share about evaluation. And then anything else that comes up through this process. So you don't see something we never thought about, or you see something we haven't thought about. Okay, what we've heard. This is, of course, a summary. We've heard a lot. We've been listening, recording, summarizing, figuring, checking what all the things people are saying against our evaluations, everything that people have asked us to pay attention to in the evaluation. As I said, sometimes you don't see that, and that's pretty frustrating, and you wonder if people are listening. This is a summary of that set. And again, if you don't see, something that's related to something you've raised, let us know. We're not trying to ignore it if we consider it. Concerns about safety for all types of road users, suggestions to reduce speed limit. And again, we get lots of suggestions. Just because we don't think suggestion A, we think suggestion B doesn't mean we didn't listen to suggestion A. Right? There's going to be different suggestions all the way along. We have to make sure we consider it. You're not suggesting it, so we'll do it necessarily. We have to make sure that it makes sense in the totality of the thing we have to look at. Concerns about road visibility and driving conditions, concerns about slowing down traffic on major roads. That was sort of opposite to some saying, you should slow traffic down, and some saying that don't slow traffic down, we gotta get through. Yes, sir, would you like to ask a question?
No. Could you turn the lights down? We're having trouble.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Maybe it'll help, maybe it won't.
Yeah, we played with the dimmer switch and ended up here, maybe some dark. Also didn't want you falling asleep over there. We also didn't want people falling asleep, so we opted for a little light. I know I'm not terribly entertaining, but it's not the day for that. In the meantime, I'm going to Can't see much. How's that? That work? Mr. Light request, is that good? Does that work for you?
Good enough.
Okay. In the meantime, someone told me I should smile more. I'm usually a pretty smiley guy, but it's not a problem. Thank you. Concerns about slowing, I just mentioned. So we have, people suggest the opposite. We should slow traffic down, and some saying, well, I don't want traffic to slow down, we have places to go to. Suggestions that the median and turning lanes should accommodate semis, of course. Suggestions to accommodate rest stops and truck parking. Concerns that drivers would need education to use some intersection types. Spoiler alert, one of the shortlisted options is ARCA, it's a new one. So when people saw that, they said, yeah, but people are going to need education how to use that. Or we have roundabouts, people are going to need education. True. Makes sense. Suggestions to create consistent intersection. Suggestions that the intersection should be easy for drivers to understand. Absolutely. One of the things we'll talk about when we talk about the options is safety. How good a job do they do at reducing driver workload? So this is a theme that I'll emphasize right now, which is that mistakes happen. And no matter how good we design an intersection, there will be mistakes. So a lot of the safety then talks about how do you reduce the likelihood of someone making a mistake. How do you reduce driver workload, they call it, the number of decisions that someone has to make when they get to that intersection. And so that's a really astute comment. Desire to maintain access to residences and agricultural land during and after construction. Concerns about service road realignment impacts to surrounding properties. We have been working with the local landowners in the vicinity. All these options affect land differently. Some of them really go out in the field and take up a lot of land. Others stay less. There's no option other than no shortlisted option that doesn't use some land that isn't currently used by highway use. Concerns about adjacent PTH1 access closures. Another spoiler alert, all of the options right now show the access and median proposed a mile east and a mile west. And I will say that we have heard very clearly about the problems that would create locally, and that this decision has not been made. We're definitely going to be relooking at that. So, we've heard that message loud and clear. So, thank you for giving us that message. Concerns about the difficulty of snow clearing and maintenance for some intersection types. Now, that one was talking about again, the roundabout in the archive. How would you be able to maintain it in winter? It's very thought as well. You're all in here anyway. And would that be okay? So that's a summary. We've heard hundreds of comments, so we do our best not to do comments and everything like this, but the summary. Okay, the safe system approach, a couple slides about that, a bit of an educational component, and for myself too, this comes from the world of engineering and what they call safe system approach, just that there's a framework for studying and figuring out what would be best, and it needs to take into account all of these factors in that orange circle, for example, safe speeds, safe road users, safe vehicles, safe road design, post-crash care, and safe land use planning. All of these are principles that need to be followed in order to get a good outcome that's safe in that current situation. Furthermore, 3 goals on the right, safe road designs. The goal there is designs that protect from mistakes, like I mentioned. It's, we have to acknowledge that people make mistakes. We try and reduce the likelihood of people making mistakes. Safe speeds, the goal there is not too fast, but also not too variable, and that comes into that discussion about speed limits. So some saying, maybe reduce speed limits here at this location, and we have to be mindful that that's not always the best solution because variability is also difficult. Someone's going at one speed, someone's going at another speed. People aren't, obeying the speed limit even if there's enforcement. So you do have a risk with having variable speeds just as much as if you lower or raise the speed limit. Safe land use planning, the goal there, reduce conflicts and control movements. So that's often about what's happening in the vicinity or area of the intersection. And planning that contributes to less negative accidents, collisions. Okay, especially for those who have not been here the last couple of meetings, these might be hard to see, but this information is available on the MTI website, and you can go to that website and get this information. We'll give you the link, and you can zoom in and peruse it. So we're recapping here. In the last meetings, we talked about these 9 intersection types. So every intersection south in Manitoba, one intersection type might be appropriate in one location, and one might be appropriate in another location because every one is unique from a number of different perspectives. So these are them, though, starting at the top left and going down the columns of the widened intersection, the split intersection, the R-cut, which stands for reduced conflict U-turn, the grade separated interchange, signalized intersection signals, roundabout, the median U-turn, which is unfortunately acronym not, restricted left, or also called jughead, and an offset T intersection. Okay, big chart. This is the first of 2 charts that are similar. When I talk about how the decision gets made, like how do you make a recommendation, this is one method that we've been using over the past decade or so to incorporate basically anything anybody raises, any topic anybody raises, whether it's from the engineering team or us as planners or yourselves that, whether it's emergency services we meet with, or school division, or farming, agriculture, etc., etc. Any of those topics get into that evaluation chart so that everybody can see how we're thinking about comparing those options against each of those variables. See if I can get this little question to work. You see that back there, that little red dot? Okay, well, I'll use my words as well. So, for example, and I know you can't read this text, I'm just going to describe the chart. It's the colors and my words that will be important here. And again, feel free to take time. In fact, it's better to Excel later until 11 tonight. So I'm trying to give everyone an overview so that you have enough information to understand it at a good enough level for yourself. These columns are the types of intersections that is covered. So create separated interchange, wide intersection, R-cut, split intersection, signals, roundabout, restricted left, limit, and other, I should say other, that would be the opposite. What's that? Oh. Yes, it says offset. I read another question. And then all of these rows are all of those factors. The slide where I talked about and I read through all of the things that we need to consider. It's all of those things plus more. And we just divided them to make it easier, engineering type things, and social type things, and then cost comes down the bottom. You'll see the cost section is undone because we're not at that stage of the project. There are costs that show up there as basically the team can verbally say, you know, this one's 3 times the cost of that one based on experience, but actual cost computed. And what you see is greens, yellows, and reds. And we simply go through the process, taking one of those considerations at a time, and ask ourselves, with that consideration in mind, whether it's use of agricultural land, let's say, is there any option that is substantially worse than the others in terms of consuming agricultural land? Is there any of the options that's better? So if it's worse, we get a red. It's better, we get a green. If they're comparable, we get a yellow. And you end up using logic instead of a calculator to figure out what all the benefits, disadvantages, and advantages that there are with every option. And we leave it open so that everyone can look at it and think, or decide for yourself, you think you got that right on a comparison basis. So the idea is to be transparent about that thinking. And what you notice, a couple things, is that every option has green in it. So there are advantages to every option. It would be just, I don't like it. It would be, no, actually, this one has advantages. And then everyone has red. So what are the disadvantages? We can't hide behind the numbers. We put it out there and say, these are the advantages and disadvantages as we see it. What do you think about those? And then we can have a structured conversation about each of the variables. So, for example, I have 3 things. Actually, can you see it? Yeah, maybe just. For example, you'll notice the first column, grade separated interchange, and the 5th column, signalized intersection. And this is the spoiler alert. Of course, the media has reported this already. But the 3 that we're shortlisting are the widened intersection, the R-cut, and the split intersection. And that's why this slide I'll talk a little bit about grade separated interchange and signals. So both, of course, have been considered. Both of those have been suggested as well. So when it comes to the grade separated interchange, absolutely, it would be great to have a grade separated interchange at every one of those dots on the map all the way across the province. Which, in some cases, it does come with disadvantages, and this isn't me saying let's not do it because there's disadvantages. You won't hear me saying that about any of them. But, for example, the amount of land it takes up is large. Of course, you have to do that. You have to take that land. Also, it's the one that will take the longest to implement. For example, in terms of the time it would take, we've heard a lot about time and making sure we move quickly, even more quickly, than things are being happening right now. And then cost. So at this high level, where that the shortlisted options are, it says in the neighborhood of 12 to 15, and could go up when we finish doing that analysis of the charts. Let's say not 20 or something like that. Whereas an interchange is 80 to 100 million. So again, cost would be the only factor, but it certainly will play a factor here, especially in looking at the chart in terms of the number of places that at this moment across Southern Vancouver could also use an interchange. So there are disadvantages. Clearly, there are advantages to the interchange option, but it has not been shortlisted. In terms of the signalized intersection, again, it kind of has the opposite situation where a number of people put signals in. And it's true, there's lots of greens there, in as much as it's quick, it's cheap, it doesn't use up land, because you can use what you have there right now, but it comes with a lot of reds as well. And when we talk about the greens, we talk about the reds, it's not fair to only look at the greens. So the biggest red factor is that it really doesn't do anything to improve the safety problem that we're trying to address. So signals are also not being shortlisted. So the balance of the presentation, you can see the reds and the greens, relative reds and greens on the balance of the chart, and columns to the right, and those are not shortlisted and rounded in the process, the judgment and so forth. So the balance of the presentation is focused on those three shortlisted options, describing each of them in detail. And then, as I mentioned, we have a video that should help. If the words and graphics don't help explain how they would work, then the video should help as well. It's just water. Okay, the widening median intersection. Again, you may want to look at this on your own, at your own leisure. You can actually zoom in on it and you can see the lane markers and so forth. But the big picture is what's important here. So what we're looking at is, and I encourage everyone to look at two layers here, the aerial photo layer, and then what's placed on top of that aerial photo, which is the yellow marking. So in the aerial photo here, you can see the eastbound and westbound lanes. And then what happens with this option is the eastbound lanes stay where they are, except, and then there's a little acceleration lane added here. So that when you're turning on PTH5, there we go, thanks. That'd be better. When you're turning off, you're headed north from Carberry up to PTH1, you make a right, with the acceleration lane added there. And then the westbound lanes are abandoned and instead pushed north into the fields. And what that does is it creates a widened median, hence the name widened median, between the eastbound and the westbound lanes. So a couple of advantages there is people can feel safer when they're in between the eastbound and westbound lanes, weighted across one direction or the other direction. And then also from that driver workload perspective, currently you got to look that way and that way, and over your shoulder on the south side to make sure nobody's coming. That workload is high, and this cuts it in half, or divides it rather than cut it in half. It means you can make one choice, proceed through, make another choice, and so it reduces the chance that any driver would make an error there. And what you'll see, this yellow at the bottom, the service road, every one of the shortlisted options shows that service road being adjusted. So you can see it in the aerial photo right now. There, yeah. And it will be pushed further south. And that creates a separation distance. For those of you familiar with these movements, looking at this now, if you're on PTH1 and you're coming into Carberry and turn right or turn south, immediately upon you is that service road intersection, very, very close. And so we see lots of close calls and collisions because of that proximity. So this would help that by pushing it further south. And of course, speaking with the landowners there, it's not going to be required as well as the homeowners who are nearby in respect of the impacts to them from this. Proposal with all of them show this service road adjustment. Furthermore, and if you can scroll up, All of them show those three X's to the west and to the east, which I mentioned earlier. Those, in an ideal situation, from a PTH1 safety perspective, the idea is always if you create an intersection that's safer, you try and get people to go through that intersection rather than one that's not safe. That said, clearly in this area, this goes to the point, every intersection is different and every area is different. Here, the movement of farm vehicles and agricultural operations will be quite impacted by that. And so we have to do some further looking at whether that can actually be done either the east or the west. But all three, so that we're transparent, show that. We would be not transparent if we weren't showing that, and letting you know that we have to look at it. And from an ideal point of view, from a safety and engineering point of view, you would go with those. But in a local situation, realizing that has an impact, we're going to have to think about how that can be resolved and whether it can be done or not. Next one is a split intersection. So this is very, very similar. It may look very similar to the white one, we just looked at the white median and the split intersection. It's basically the same idea, except that you push the westbound lanes further north. And what you actually get is not just a wide median, but they call it split because they're so far apart that, again, that driver workload is reduced by allowing the driver to just look in one direction at one time to cross PTH1 and on PTH5. And also you get a bigger refuge between the eastbound and westbound lanes for several cents in parking there rather than just say one in the car. So it really is an advantage in that respect. Of course, a major disadvantage would be the use of agricultural land and the acquisition of land, which can be very disruptive. And remember the chart about 15 to 20 other things to consider whether they're better or worse than any of the other options. So again, I just encourage people, I know when you look at an option, and I do it too, you say right away, I hate that one, or I hate that one. Really trying to be as level-headed and objective as you can about the relative advantages and disadvantages of each one. We don't have that luxury of just telling somebody the decision maker, just do this one because we think it's better. We have to go through all of them, open-mindedly at all of them, and I encourage everyone to join us in that effort.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
So my impression was that when you're headed north on the number 5, and
Yeah.
you're going to cross the Trans-Canada, or say I want to go to Winnipeg, that I have to take that service road to get back out on the highway. But
No.
correct me, no, you're going to go to the stop sign just as it is now and use that merging lane to go east.
Yeah, so not the stop sign, you do it merge.
Oh, yes, true.
Yeah. With the addition of this acceleration lane, you have a protected lane to speed up in.
So that part's not changing. The service road then is just for,
Really for Robin's Nest. Yeah, makes sense?
no,
Sorry, no?
Yes.
I'm quite
Yes.
understanding how you're doing.
you clarified it, yes.
Thanks. Okay. Yes, sir.
How's the actual reason why we're all here?
Yes.
Any of these that actually, I know you can't compare, will it reduce what actually happens if we are still coming to a stop line, meeting traffic? that's going across?
Yeah, so you probably can hear the questions. Do any of these, like the reason many of your analysis of collision, will it actually make it safer? And it will, and I've got some info to help describe that. But yeah, I encourage everyone to keep the mind open. This is an opportunity to see the information, judge for yourself, but let's wait till you see the information. Okay, the R cut for the reduced conflict U-turn, yes, it's new, and we'll take some time, and because, I'll just say this now in the presentation, there's a fair bit of additional information on the R cut, because it's new, and we need to explain it so that it gets a fair shape in that evaluation. So it may look like we're picking the R cut, we have not selected a preferred alternative. and the extra information so that everyone can understand. And I'll tell you, when we work on these projects, and we've got some of the members of the project team here, all of the project team has advice to what they think should be done. And for sure, there's some who feel that our method is appropriate, but we're not in a position to say that's the third alternative. So the way it works first, the big thing is considering what you can do on PTH1 versus what you can do on PTH5. So if you're on Highway 1 and you're going east to west, you get free movement. Remember, that was one of the things. You want to have free movement on PTH1. So you do in the area. In this one, you also have the ability to turn off PTH1. If you're going eastbound, you can turn northbound. That's what that first arrow is. If you're going westbound, you can go southbound. So you have freedom of movement on and off. What's substantially different and maybe obvious to you if you're on PTH5 and you want to go straight through, and again, the nature of recent vision in many instances is that movement is going straight through, you can't. So what the archive does to make things safer, if you're going on PTH5 to the south and you want to continue to the north, you need to merge onto PTH1, and it goes off the drawing here. But some distance, you do a U-turn, and then you come back and you can continue to go either to Brandon or north on PTH5. And the same should be true if you're coming south. You have to go to the U-turn to the west, and then you can come back and turn to Carberry. So we've got some data that talks about travel times and how much extra time each of these intersections will take, or how much quicker actually a lot of the movements are quicker, even in this one, for each of those options, and we'll share that in a moment. So that's how it works. You can see the service road again, the median coaches again, subject to the things I said. Like I said, third or fourth time, but we do need to have a closer look at those median closures that are shown in front. Property acquisition is one topic. It's been noted already in the short list of options. These drawings show everything in orange is land that would be required, and we've been in touch with these landowners. No decision made, of course, about which one yet, but to look at things, clearly, what are all the locations? And you can see in the service road in every case, two blotches of orange that need to be acquired in order to do those service roads. And in the first case, this is the widening, two slivers of land on the east side and the west side of PTH5, north of PTH1. In terms of the split, this of course has the biggest impact on property. If this were the one chosen, it would require all that land in order to accommodate the split. And then the archive has the same service road as noted already, and very small sliver of land on the north side, which is so small it starts to see meters. Okay, to the question of safety. There's a few slides on safety. Yeah. Yeah, so that slide that shows those. Yeah, so the gentleman's talking about, whether B trains can sit in wall, whether B trains can make that turn on. This is a slide that shows some B trains, how that would have to be designed in order to make it. But then we can talk. Okay, conflict points. So conflict points are important for understanding safety. It's one of the ways of understanding safety for intersection analysis. So in that first bullet, we indicate the study reviews numerous kinds of conflicts. These include three kinds: emerging conflicts, divergent conflicts, and crossing conflicts. And each of those predicted injury rates with depending on the type of conflict. So not every conflict is the same. So for crossing conflicts, these are more likely to result in severe collisions associated with right angles. So you can appreciate a right angle collision is your most severe other than head-on type of collision. And those are therefore considered high risk. emerging and diverging conflicts could be low, medium, or high risk, depending on speed and angle. That's the little chart at the bottom on the right. It refers to the high risk being the 90-degree angle collision, high speed differential greater than 50K. Medium, 45-degree angle collision, 10 to 50K. And then low, 10 degrees at less than 10 kilometers. So that's one piece of understanding safety, which is explained in the graphic on the next slide. So these are very important slides. And I should mention afterwards, we're going to put the options up on the tables at the back. If you want to stick around a little further and talk to us, we'll put the options there and have some of these slides and safety there as well. So the left hand, this one here on the left, that's an existing, or the existing intersection. That's a typical 90-degree cross intersection. And this is just geometry, so you can see it's just the lines. That's a line for every car limit. So if you imagine going in any direction and making a turn, all those options are on there. And every time a line crosses a line, it's a potential conflict. So these are just geometry. These are all conflict points, green, yellow, and red. And those red ones are the high-risk ones, where the angle side and the speed side. And in the current situation, there's 18 high-risk conflict points. There are 16 of them are that 90-degree, and 2 of them are the emerging inversion. Did I say that right? Yeah, thank you. Not the engineer, just the one explains it. Yes, sir, go ahead.
I'm done. You talk about all these things, but you don't talk about lights. Same kind of light sensor that you have on 16 and 1. It's worked for years and years and years. Why can't it work on 5 and 1?
Okay, so we did talk about signals at some time on it, saying, the disadvantages. So I'm going to go through the presentation and we can talk about further why signals are selected, but they're not shortlisted.
I just want to know why.
It doesn't deal with safety, why that's needed. Okay, the next one is, this one actually represents both the widen and the split. They're essentially the same configuration. Just remember, the split is just further. They both create a wide median, but you have the same patterns. So this graph suits both the wide and the split. And you can see what's happened is the number of high-risk conflict points has been reduced to 4 here and 4 here. So from 18 to 8. So it is effective in safety, just starting there from a logic point of view and an analysis point of view. If you were asked to say, how are you going to manage safety? How are you going to characterize safety? You start looking like we're looking in terms of those conflict points, reducing those conflict points, and then reducing driver probabilities of many ways to make something safer, as opposed to speculation about whether we think something is safer or is it safer. We have to analyze it and prove it. Last one is the RPAT, and from a safety evaluation perspective, it outperforms the other two quite substantially. And again, just the geometry here, it wasn't magic. It reduces the high risk conflict points to just 2, and that's why it's seen as safer than the other two, where it channelizes the driver's movements, reduces the driver's workload thereby, and also creates only one high risk conflict.
So if you went to PR, well, then how is the speed going to reduce? Is it going to be 100 or 110?
So speed limits, there you want to talk about speed limits. The question was, in any of these options, would the study be recommending any speed limit changes? Is it possible there's recommended speed limit changes?
So certainly, as you can imagine, speed is a major factor in any kind of incident or collision. And of course, a lot of people logically think reducing speed makes things safer. However, as drivers, as yourselves, everybody likely driver here in the room, as you drive in certain situations, you tend to have a feel for how the road operates and how it feels for you. If you feel safe going a certain speed, or if you feel more confined, you don't feel as safe, so you tend to slow down. So the way highways operate in Manitoba for the most part are, is they're wide open, there's not a lot of visual cues for why a person would need to slow down and that sort of thing. So drivers tend to drive to an operating speed that feels safe to them, and the speed limits are set based upon design standards and that operating speed, or that operating speed that drivers tend to operate. So it's a little bit of an art and a little bit of a science, because if you do if you do on any of these options look at, you know what, if you put up an 80, you'll have some people that will 100% obey the law-abiding citizens, but you will certainly have individuals that will not abide by that. So you can have, you know, a speed differential of between 80 and 110, 120. So now you got a 40 kilometer an hour speed differential. So imagine for yourself, for any of these options, I'm going to be pulling up there, is that car going 80 or 100 or 110? And that's when some of these issues or mistakes can be made. So it's a long answer to say we haven't decided yet. That's the short answer. It's being looked at, reviewed. We want to make sure with whatever option gets selected here, the right solution is made. And speed is still a factor being considered. But I just want to kind of paint that context a little bit to give everybody a bit of an idea of kind of how speeds are set up in the process.
Thanks, Larry. And Diana has another thing to add to that.
I just briefly in a question asked about 100 or 110 kilometers per hour, and there's no thought about increasing this one in this section.
110's on.
So then even if it was at 100, I see you've got some that are yellow and green with the merging. But if they're doing 100 and they hit me merging, why is that not a high risk?
So with respect to the level of risk for the merging conference, it's a combination of the speed and the angle of the collision that would happen, and the collision angles for the merge are much lower than the, for example, the crossing conflicts, which are usually a 90 degree angle.
That's on the architect there, you talk about like merging, right? But we actually have to merge. If I'm going to Brandon, I have to merge potentially 8 times, right? Because I got to do a shoulder check over each lane that I'm crossing. I have vehicles coming at me at 100 kilometers an hour. So I got to go from the very right lane, speed up, merge over to right into the arc cut, and then slow down, come around the arc cut, merge back on the highway, and then shoulder check again to get all the way back over to the right lane. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then that's with winter time, and it's an east and westbound lane with the sun
Yeah.
as well, right? You know,
Yeah.
and then we have semis that are pulled over in the merge lanes, that's where they sleep. So next to checking over my shoulder,
Right.
I also have to dodge semis that are parked halfway over the merge lane.
Right.
So I just thought I'd mention that one, because I drive to Brandon every morning. And every morning there's lineups of trucks.
Yeah. Yeah, right, so if I heard you right, you know, in the archive, if you hit that U-turn you talk about, there is an acceleration lane, so you're in that lane, but even then you have to merge in, and then merge in, and then go off to the T5.
Yeah, so if I'm going to Brandon, I gotta turn.
You're going to Brandon, you merge in.
Left shoulder check,
Yeah.
left, or get driving lane, shoulder check, get in the
Yeah.
fast lane, shoulder
6.
check, get in the merge, right?
Yeah.
Then do it all over again.
Yes,
The other way.
yeah, you're not wrong, yeah, it makes sense.
And then you gotta think of our semis and stuff,
Yeah.
next to school buses full of kids.
Of course, hey, we have kids and we don't want to say,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, 100%.
I question if they're really considering the type of traffic that travels up and down number 5, with agricultural, with big trucks, to make them do all that turning and shifting, accelerating, trying to cross high-speed lanes.
Yeah.
I don't think that's
So-
power.
Yeah, I understand. So bear with us. Feel rolling in there, but bear with us. There's more, and so just because we're talking about this, like we said, I haven't selected anything yet, and eyes wide open about the situation. really something will get selected, and none of them will be acceptable to everybody, none of them will be perfect. So, you know, some of the other ones that are merging, some of the other ones don't eliminate the higher risk conflict points. So, you know, all of us are gonna have to accept an option that doesn't do everything. So we haven't settled on this, so this is still just what are the advantages and disadvantages of each one. So if you're finding yourself not liking this, you can't change that because we have to go through the analysis to make sure we also say what's good and not good about it, not our preference, of course, but what, and from an analysis point of view, what's the advantage and disadvantage. Gentleman made a really good thing about a disadvantage of changing lane six.
Right, because you have it as a low risk, but actually I'm taking a risk 3 times having a shoulder check.
But the point being, in this framework for analysis, it's not a red, because it's not a 90 degree.
Yeah, but it's backwards. So we
Sorry, it's also medium, not it's yellow. Right? Emerge. So again, I'm not going to defend it, I just want to make sure we get the info right. Gentleman back.
So when you were doing your analysis, did you just sort of focus just on that intersection? When you're considering it, did you consider moving highway number 5, like when you come in highway number 5, there's a stop sign in the turn here on the S-turn. So if you were to straighten highway number 5 all the way to the highway and separate those 2 intersections, that would create sort of a semi-hard turn, if you'd like.
Yes, I remember you might put it on the table. We put it on the table as well. That's the offset T. So if you do extend ET5 straight up, you end up with an offset intersection. That's the offset T,
Yeah.
which had, we could go back to it, has quite a series of disadvantages compared to these 3. So it is a viable solution. All 9 are viable solutions. It just hasn't been shortlisted for the reasons which you reviewed in detail.
Which I did.
Okay, I'm going to keep going, and then we'll stop along the way further, but I want to follow down on one. And those are the 3. Again, you know, this is just geometry. The gentleman's point is correct. They're shown as yellow or medium, so those are not 90 degrees just by definition. And correct that as you go, if you want to continue northbound, you do have to merge across, so it's good to rotate both times, 6 left. Okay, this slide is almost done on this section of safety, but it's just the same information now in chart format. So you can see this column says total conflict points, existing 32, those are all the red ones, widened 26, split 26, arc at 14, that's the total points, and the total crossing conflict points, those 90 degree ones are 16, 10, 10. So there is a clear advantage when we were asked to look at it. That's what this particular piece of information points to. The last bullet.
Question,
Sorry.
for the numbers, then wouldn't you add another 12 then? Because you're shoulder checking and merging essentially 6 times per lane?
So Diana, would you add like 6? Not 12.
So you merge once, but if you're doing it with a red, and you're.
Yeah, I got it. 6 green ones, would you?
Yellow.
So the gentleman's asking, and it's a great question, thank you. You know, because of that merging situation with the RPAT, on the, especially if you're going off to go to H5, you might merge all the way over. In one direction, you have to merge across 3 lanes, and then in the other direction, the same thing. So he's asking, would you add dots on the count of potential conflict points because you have to make those movements? And if so, you know, would it be, I think you're going to consider the rules just.
Well, they're yellow, would they?
Oh, yeah, okay.
So it'd be 12, essentially 12 more yellow dots.
So right, 12 and that's-
3 for each lane, yeah. If you're coming over 3 lanes or coming over.
Or one for each lane? You're going for one?
You're merging on the highway, then you're going into the slow lane, and then you're moving into the fast lane, and then you're
3.
over.
That's 3.
Traffic could be coming behind you as you're merging over to that R cut, right?
No, it's 3.
So these are all really good comments. A lot of this will get explained as we go through on part of it, but as you merge onto Trans-Canada Highway, yes, you have to do the check, right? Along acceleration lane, get up to speed. You will still have to do the next check to get into the passing lane. But there is no other lane for the decel lane for slowing down to do the U-turn. There'll be nobody coming up behind you on that side, so there's no jack.
That's what you say, right? So there's shoulder check.
Oh yeah, you still would shoulder jack, but that would be a shoulder, it would be a true shoulder, and then the left could be like a left turn lane being added in there. So like unless somebody's passing on the shoulder, in theory there should be nobody there for that.
You might have to slow down for traffic, right? Like you're not always just gonna move over right away. I might have to wait and then merge, and then someone in behind me can get in behind into that archive performance, right? So I still have to shoulder check to get into the archive. So it's not always gonna be 3 lanes of open fast. You understand what I'm trying to get at?
Yeah, I think we got you. Let us get through it, the video, and then we'll pick it up. We want different lanes, so if you're right, we'll change it. Let's solve that. It sounds like, we just need to get that number right, because it's not right. Okay, what about time? What's the time travel difference? These numbers are a way of understanding how much time it would take in every scenario to make your way through the intersection. So it shows current conditions and then time for wide intersection movements, split intersection movements, and arc intersection movements. And what we're looking at is current conditions. You can see northbound, southbound, eastbound, westbound. So I'm just explaining how to read the chart. So for example, how long does it take if you're northbound, which would be on ETH5, and you want to make a left towards Brandon? On average, currently, 166 seconds, which of course isn't because of travel time, it's because of average waiting time, right? Because you have to wait for both directions. This is calculated, nobody made that numbers. If another example would be, if you are westbound on ETH1 and you want to turn left towards Carberry, currently it takes 3 seconds again because you have to wait. Not as long as the other because you're only waiting for one direction. So that's how the existing numbers. Then we compare the travel time difference in the bottom here. Green speed, it will improve, like it'll be quicker, and those are in seconds. And red means to be slower. So in those two same examples, if you're northbound and you want to turn the front each 5 and you want to turn left towards Brandon, in the wide one it'll make it 57 seconds shorter, about a minute. Same for the split, about a minute. And just a little bit shorter with the shorter. In the westbound last example, they're almost the same, 2 seconds, which is hard to do them. For wide one and for arc fat, about 13 seconds for split. These ones are highlighted because they're notable. So for the arc fat, some directions are quicker, green ones, some of the movements. But 2 are slower and notably slower, a minute more than a minute and a little less than a minute. So if you're southbound on ETH5 and you want to turn left towards Portage, you have to go do that U-turn, right? So it's going to take you longer, do about a minute longer. If you're southbound and you want to go through Carberry, about a minute, 7 seconds longer. So that's the data. If you want to look. Travel time is important to you. Of course, that's like all factors. So this is one of them. Go ahead.
Why are they not, the northbound and southbound, why are the opposites not equal?
Why are they opposites?
Why does it take longer southbound to go straight through than it does northbound to go straight through? The distance is the same, right?
So the question is, why, if the logic is the southbound right, then why the northbound right? Because if the northbound right is the comparison.
But even the straight through, the distance is the same, is it not?
The distance is the same, so there you don't. Okay.
Yeah, good question. One thing to point out here is, so these are traffic operating travel times that are determined for dynamic horizon, which is 2054. And they are also for the PMP power, and just typical to look at the peak periods and to project your traffic out and making decisions for long-term infrastructure improvements like this. So in this case, if you look at the existing northbound travel times compared to the existing 2054 northbound travel times and compared to the southbound, they are much higher than the northbound is much higher than the southbound numbers. And when you look at the archives, it kind of normalizes the two directions such that the difference is showing a lot of people are not the same. And so this is showing that in the case of the archives, for the northbound direction, considering the travel times in the existing condition, existing intersection configuration, they result in just slight decreases or more or less the same time to travel through the intersection when the northbound lane is left or through the roads. But in the southbound direction, because it's basically not as busy as the northbound direction. The travel times are lower certainly, and when you look at archives, can you add to go through U-turns, and you see an increase there. I hope that explains that.
Okay, yeah, there's very interesting, there's some additional slides at the end we can share on the topic, but you can see your hand in existing difference, right? Balance out, even though they're the same, because of the existing job patterns, you actually get longer in
How many articles that intersection do you actually use?
We'll talk about that in a moment. Your questions are always bang on for my next. It always tells me that you feel proud of it. And so that's a question that's coming up. It means okay. Yeah.
I don't understand how it can be zero for northbound through. We have to merge on to northbound.
Okay, so northbound through here for the aircraft, why there's no difference for the northbound through because of waiting time, because you don't have to wait. It is interesting,
Well, you do have to merge on.
which is different than waiting, so you merge and also wait for the stop sign. You know that when you yield often you just get to keep going. You have to slow, but you don't stop. Whereas a full stop to a crosswalk, you have to stop. So the logic holds there. Go ahead.
I noticed you got all these wait times and everything else. Are you talking about winter time?
Is this through the wait times on average throughout the year, or are they particular season that I know? Can you just tell me?
It's looking at the peak hour and it's
Typical through the years.
So would it depend on the conditions of the road?
Yeah, like, you know when you do an average, right? Yes, of course, you're right. Yeah, conditions would mean you don't go slower, for sure. And not in all intersections, obviously. Yeah. Here and then. No, okay, go ahead.
I'm just confused about your
One second. Go ahead.
I'm confused about your travel times. Is the travel time from you sitting at the stop sign, going around the R cut and coming back to the same point on the other side of the intersection? Or is it just the wait time?
One more time, I didn't understand.
Okay, so if I'm sitting at the stop sign,
Which one?
going north,
Okay.
let's say north, through is 140 seconds now, right?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so if I'm sitting there and I'll have zero wait time because I'm merging, right?
To the right.
And I'm traveling down the highway and I'm cutting across,
Yeah.
I'm going across, I'm yielding, and I'm coming down, and you're saying that's gonna take 0 seconds?
No, it's 140 seconds, exactly the same numbers, that's how the chart works. The bottom chart is the difference in that chart.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's, yeah.
Yeah, so we wrestle with, hey, this is like traffic engineering 101, I had to learn too. It's complicated, so, you know, we thought, should we show just total travel time and let people be on their own, or should we show the difference? We just thought the difference would be easier to show and highlight it for we do have a reference that shows the opposite of total travel time for those who want to kind of learn traffic. Okay, next, and Diana mentioned this, but I should re-mention it. The bold number there, the first row, these are numbers from 2054, right? 30 years from now, the traffic engineers need to project them. So those are worse than they would be on day one. Day one, the delay times would be less, and also the beneficial times would be less. Okay, so we're going to get to the evaluation criteria. This is the list. I'm going to read them because we kind of read them before. Driver was mentioned a few times, but all of them, enforcement, heritage, implementation timeline, examples, operating speed, traffic flow, and so forth. So the chart is obviously the same logic-based chart, but just for the 3 shortlisted options to compare them. Someone can turn that phone off. That'd be wonderful. It's like the phone. Okay, here are some examples, and we will zoom in, but before we do, so what we did on this chart is we reordered, didn't change the variables at all, they're all the same ones, we reordered them so it's easier to walk through them, so comparable things are put together. For example, at the top, now we have RFAT in column 1, widened in column 2, and split in column 3. Safety is the first one. Based on what we just showed, that safety analysis, we said that the RFAT's better. We didn't say it's 1 times better, 2 times better, 8.1 times. Didn't bother with that, right? It's not worth it. People get distracted from it. It's logic-based anyway. It shows that it's safer. It's not the best in every category, but in that one, it is better than most. The next 4 are all green, meaning they're all comparable and good. So that includes traffic flow through, and they all do a good job of that. The geotechnical, the ground conditions here are all the same for all those options. Drainage will have handled the same. Prioritizing PTH1, i.e., that is, prioritizing PTH1 over PTH5. This is the major thoroughfare across the country. They all do a good job of that equally. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are yellow, meaning they're all comparable and all not perfect on those variables, but comparable. So the visibility in terms of sight lines is comparable, turning movement mobility is comparable, local access disruption comparable, all the stuff is a little bit. Operating speed will be the same. Construction safety and detours are comparable. Greenhouse gas in terms of slowing people down and not slowing people down is the same. Environmentally sensitive risks will be the same. Accommodating future interchange will be the same in terms of they don't none of them do a special job of accommodating future interchange. Different than then we get into some comparisons highlighted. So, and I want to see the words but addressing severe conflict. Severe we gave a red, a yellow, and a green differently. We said that they're actually each a little bit different as we showed in those safety slides. Comparably, again, reds don't mean kills an option, just means it's not as good as the other options on this factor. Just one factor. So here, as we showed, our performs better than the other alternatives when analyzing safety and food aspects of severe conflicts. The widened median alternative performs the poorest of the 3. Doesn't do as well as the other 2, which we showed based on high response. Then traffic flow, there's some differential, traffic flow, visibility, based on environmental conditions, when it's snowing, snow mentioned season, and maintenance. The RFAT is not quite as good as the other 2. right? So it's not as good in everything category. Large data navigation. Clearly an issue here in terms of one that needs to be considered. The archive doesn't perform as well as the other two, mainly because of the major U-turn that has to be made. So it doesn't get to nod compared to the other two. With large data can be done, but you have to navigate. The split alternative performs the quarters of the tree when looking at using existing road infrastructure. So it's the one that goes off into the field because you're really not making use of existing road infrastructure. Not a deal breaker, but another legitimate comparison point. And then this lower half, community access, Carberry Mutual, both are good. More traffic, Carberry Mutual, even in the case of the archive, a minute delay in that trip, we don't consider significant from a travel perspective. Agricultural movements, yes, that's no donation. And then potential risk to heritage regions is the same, all yellow. Snowmobile trail can be accommodated, we just spoken to folks. Time to implement, all about the same time to implement. And then that next red one, the archive has minimal impacts to residents of static under 9 acquisition, purely the split intersection is the reds and the other one in between. And then the archive performs better than the other alternatives when analyzing driver workflow. So not massive differential, but an important notable differential. Near the bottom, driver expectations and education. Archive require a little more, so it's not as good as those two. Emergency services, because of that delay in some of the movements, not as good. We have 2 lines that are blank for other. If we miss something, some things we should add something, we will. No problem. We need to consider it if we miss it. Yeah.
The ambulance driver, it's got recut.
What kind of driver?
Ambulance.
Yes. Yes, car enough.
And it's gonna be enough room for the rest of the drivers to pull aside so he can get through.
Yeah, yes, it would be. Yeah. Okay, and then at the bottom, costs, they're going to be comparable. Comparable means typically used within a contingency thing. So if you have a contract, there's always a contingency, and it's a 10 to 30%. The cost is within that amount, and they're comparable because there's contingency. So they're not taking your 100, they're not your 100 million down to 3 million, somewhere involved. And that's how we think about it. So, as I said, we don't have the luxury of picking on one factor. We have to look at all the factors, particularly safety, and then everything else is important as well. And in the end, we want to pick the one that has the least disadvantages and the most advantages, in particular the critical ones. Okay, I mentioned this, I mentioned again, archive is not selected. And even when we look at it, some of us want to pick the archive, and some don't. So we are trying to remain objective about which one to pick. And since it's new, we want to provide some extra material here to help explain it. Extra material also helps explain the widening and split intersection. There was a question about whether these exist in the number. I don't know the number. They are all over the world, and quite a few in the U.S. The Saskatchewan has implemented one in 2000. They did one, so how's it going over there? It's a great province, it's winter, our neighbors in Saskatchewan deal with a similar situation to do in Manitoba. So this is one that exists in Saskatchewan. These are actual photos. Large vehicle outbound mission vehicle moving through. The team has spoken with Saskatchewan. Hey, how's it going? In terms of its movement, in terms of collision, or near misses, in terms of maintenance, and they indicate it's going well. So that it's really helpful to have a local nearby example. So we're not going to rely as to this option. Keep in mind, even if you don't like the option, it is an option. There were, oh yeah, okay, if you're in great.
Whereabouts is that?
Larry, whereabouts is this?
It's just west of Saskatoon on Highway 16, Yellowhead.
the speed limits there?
So when they implemented it, they designed it based on 110 design speed for posted 100. But under the abundance of caution, they have posted it at an 80 to 100 hour design speed, and they're evaluating that while it operates, and then they're going to make a decision whether it maintains there or they raise it up.
Is it running alongside the city or is it?
It's well outside of Saskatoon.
Here,
Question, for those trailers on that truck don't go very long, and there are some trailers now on trucks that are two very long trailers on a truck.
right, and we'll just go back, I think the auto turn, there's the auto turn, orange symbol. This one, which trailer, what setup is this? 250 foot trailers. So wait, this is forward, back. Forward, okay, I thought we hadn't seen this one yet. Again, your question was the next slide, so that's this one. This is showing a bus and then 252 foot trailers. This is software, which you see the reality version in Saskatoon. This is the normal software called auto turn. You put the trailer in there, and it shows you the orange is the wheel path. So it shows the outer extent of all wheels in its totality. So it's designed to make it work.
So even with the longer trailer.
Yeah.
then
Yeah, and then you're not working right away, you're going to sell it, you get your own lane. Right, this vehicle gets its own lane. As it comes in, it doesn't have to navigate in right away. It gets emerged in, and the same thing on the way up. Which then is that merging. Yes?
But the slide before this one, got a picture of, okay, if that semi is there, I'm going north on 5, now I have to merge, turning right, and immediately get in that left-hand lane. That guy's already sitting there, so now I'm at a dead stop on the Trans-Canada.
So you're in your own protected lane.
Not according to that picture.
I'll show you I'll show you a video. No, that's the protected lane.
Because there's not enough room for me to get in behind him, so I'm stopped on the
That
Trans-Canada.
would be the deceleration lane into so that's not a through lane there, that's the deceleration lane.
So at that point, the Trans-Canada is 3 lanes wide.
There is 2 through lanes and a deceleration lane to do the U-turn.
See this white wheel path, that's a lane. That's a lane, and that's a deceleration. Well, the video shows this people.
Those intersections of this, is there really count them? Like there's a lot of truck traffic on 5. Other intersections might not have as much truck traffic. Is that? I mean,
Yeah.
like number 1 here and number 5, both of them on truck traffic or.
Yeah.
Yes, we have done traffic counts and through the truck volumes, particularly size of the trucks, and also the acceleration rates of the trucks when doing the traffic analysis.
Okay, a few more slides, video, and then we'll talk, which can include going back to the slides as we need to have additional questions from folks. This is the decision-making process. We are here at step 5, which is sharing more detailed alternatives and evaluation, listening to things we might have missed, things that are important locally, topics that are important, critiques of our evaluation, we have all good ones, and we need to maybe adjust. Makes sense, and it's better than doing it this way, not just doing our analysis, I'm going to show you what we do at home. It's integrated. We're never too far along if we can fix errors and gaps. Next would be incorporating feedback to options evaluation, select the preferred alternative and come back. And we intend to do that before summer. Where to go from there? This one starts with the other one left off, and it's horizontal instead of vertical. But summer, well, pre-summer, 2025, maybe June, we haven't scheduled it yet, but we will let everybody know when we're ready for that. Phase 3, for alternative, followed by detailed design in fall. Number 3, construction tender advertised. for the aggregate production in the winter of 2025 and spring of 2026. Then commence on-site construction summer of 2026. Whichever one. Then traffic availability to use the facility in the fall after the summer construction and landscape. Okay, so those are the key questions. I've kind of given this theme throughout my presentation or our presentation, which are, does the evaluation process make sense to you? We want it to be logical, transparent, thorough. So we're open to critiques about how that evaluation has been done. Do you think they need to do this? We can add in those intervention. Would you add anything? What impacts or benefits do you see from your own perspective? Everyone wears at least a couple hats. You might be an emergency services provider. What's your perspective from being an emergency services provider? But you're also a citizen, so you can answer as a citizen of both. It's helpful to know which one you're answering from. If you're a potato truck driver and someone driving to school, those are two different perspectives too. So really helpful for us to know what perspective you're coming from. And if you do have a preference, it's really helpful to know why. It's really more helpful to know why. Because we're not going to have a vote on it. It's not how major infrastructure decisions can be made. So tell us why, and that would be enormously helpful. And some good insight with already said, and taking notes to make sure we don't miss that. Is that it here then? Okay, so now there's a survey. You all have comment sheets. Okay, you waited to fill it out to have information, but you filled it out early. Before you add, that's okay. Just make sure you add if you something change your thought pattern. You do it. Okay. Not sure. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Okay, the question for those who can hear is about roundabout. Why isn't the roundabout shortlisted here? What makes it not appropriate for this location? Is that your question? Yeah, so I'll start and Larry certainly help add to it. But it is appropriate in Manitoba. Manitoba Highway MTI has implemented actually a number of places now, ETH2 and 3 near Oakville, over at 206 near Garden, in North Bank, also Highway 6. Actually, Portage is just off the interchange there, so that's a little bit different because it's due to the interchange. But there are places where that's appropriate. This being ETH1, a major east-west connector across the country, I think there's substantial concern about not slowing that through and down, and you saw that as other criteria. We do want to see ETH1 flowing, and it's really the more local, even though substantial traffic on ETH5 that's nowhere near ETH1. So really giving priority to ETH1. And around it, so everybody, it's great, it's super safe. But it doesn't do, it has that advantage, but it has these other disadvantages. So it wasn't seen as appropriate for a shortlist.
I think the other point to be made is obviously TransCanada is a multi-lane facility, in each direction, so you need to be able to build a multi-lane roundabout and accommodate those long accommodation vehicles, those largest double trailer trucks that you see out there. So that you can envision the size of the radius that you have to have, or you can have vehicles maneuvering around that roundabout and not clipping each other and getting each other's way, that it just becomes too problematic.
Thank you. Okay, we'll play the video and then we've got time to take questions. This video, you can go ahead and do that. It shows how each of those roads develop to function in its scale. See one section where it's kind of stages to show, so you don't have to be so long that the vehicles can move around.
there is none.
Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure is undertaking a design study to improve safety at the intersection of Highway 1, the Trans-Canada Highway, and Highway 5, north of Carberry. Currently, at this intersection, Highway 1 features free flow conditions, and Highway 5 is controlled with stop signs approaching Highway 1. Between the eastbound and westbound lanes of Highway 1, there is a narrow median that is controlled by a yield sign. As part of the design study, intersection upgrade options have been developed. These include a widened median intersection, a split intersection, and a reduced conflict U-turn, or RCUT for short. The widened median option, as the name implies, includes a wider median than exists now, between the eastbound and westbound lanes of Highway 1. To accomplish this, the westbound lanes would be reconstructed to the north of the existing westbound lanes of Highway 1. Safety improvements of this option include replacing the yield signs in the median with stop signs and accommodation of traffic in the median. This median separation allows the driver to break the crossing into 2 stages, which provides drivers more time to look and select gaps in the Highway 1 traffic. The split intersection is similar to the widened median option, except that the median is more than twice as wide. This option would require the westbound lanes of Highway 1 to be realigned even further north than in the widened median option. This option improves safety by also replacing the yield signs in the median with stop signs and providing even greater accommodation of traffic in the median. This option also allows for staged crossings, providing drivers time to look and select gaps in the Highway 1 traffic. A reduced conflict U-turn, or RCUT for short, is an innovative intersection design that improves safety and operations by changing how Highway 5 traffic crosses or turns left at Highway 1. The widened intersection option and the split intersection option are more common in Manitoba. However, since the RCUT option would be new to Manitoba, it requires some further explanation. On the major road, in this case Highway 1, drivers navigate the intersection like a conventional intersection, traveling unimpeded when staying on Highway 1. Drivers are permitted to turn either north or south from Highway 1 onto Highway 5. The new median left turn lanes provide better views of oncoming traffic to help drivers cross the oncoming travel lanes more safely. On the minor road, in this case Highway 5, vehicles are not permitted to directly cross Highway 1 or turn left. All traffic on Highway 5 approaching Highway 1 starts by turning right to merge onto Highway 1. Traffic then continues on Highway 1, changes lanes, and will need to make a U-turn on Highway 1. Then traffic either continues down Highway 1 or exits onto Highway 5, depending on their destination. The RCUT intersection is very common in the United States and is emerging in Canada as a safe option for major highway intersections. The most recent installation of an RCUT is northwest of Saskatoon on Highway 16. This intersection, while new to the area, is being used successfully. Following construction, video conflict analysis shows that it has significantly reduced high-risk vehicle conflicts. This is expected to reduce fatal and serious injury conflicts over time. MTI has developed options to improve safety at Highway 1 and Highway 5. All 3 options will improve the safety of the intersection, although the safety performance is not the same for each option. A thorough comparison of the advantages and disadvantages of each option has been undertaken and is available for viewing. Public, stakeholder, and rights holder feedback can help the study team make better recommendations by identifying specific local issues, topics, or concerns for the study team to look at. For further information on this project and to provide feedback, please visit these websites. Thank you for watching.
Okay, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your questions and your comments. and we'll just keep going.
Yeah, if you want that, put lights in there, how would it work?
What kind of, you mean if we widen the median signals? Are you asking if add signals to the wide and median option? Signal rendering codes?
White in the center, white in the center, put lights in there.
Absolutely.
Or would that work?
Would it work to put signals in the wide and median setup? So I think he's saying since you put a 16 and 1, all that's not on the median setup.
So the 116 geometry condition is similar to the way it is at 1.5 right now, so it's a narrow median. So the whole issue of traffic signals on a highway network, it's a little bit controversial, right? Everybody, can see them, we have them down to but it's not necessarily a typical approach across the country. So some of the issues that get into with traffic signals, you can imagine, people don't always obey the signals, right? You have people expecting that they have the right of way and the green right of way, so you can still get into those severe conflict situations with the 90-degree accidents that happen where people think they have the right of way, fully expect it, full confidence, but then people don't stop. And that's also combined with rear-end collisions as well. So one of the things that the department is trying to look into is other options that are available, other things that are out there, their treatments in order to alleviate those kind of concerns. So that's one of the reasons why signals is often service.
Yeah, just one on not traffic signals, but lighting. Is there a lighting plan, like so light, so like you can see further down, or instead of just because all those new cars put bright white lights now, you don't really. So are we planning to maybe put more lights in that intersection? And then a second question on that one, then is there going to be more enforcement again, like I talked about semis, right? If they pull over because it's a lit area, it's a nice place for them to pull over and get in safe, but they're in the merchant, so those two will coincide.
Yeah. So all options, illumination is to be looked at, and again, given the importance of the intersection, what's going on there. So that's certainly on the table for all the options. And the point there before, again, with traffic enforcement and the truckers pulling over there, that's also been flagged as well. We've been raising that with the amount of the trucking association as well as motor carrier enforcement and others. Because then nobody needs to be stopping around there. There's a lot of stuff going on, and it's not going to help anybody make good decisions.
Actually, I just wanted to ask that you repeat all the questions as they're received. We're certainly not hearing them very well back here from you.
Oh, sorry, I will repeat the question. That question in there together, the answer was about illumination versus signals. Will the area be lit up any differently than it is now? Okay, 1, 2, 3.
Why are you doing a big loop at service road? On this one side,
Right.
I remember you were getting across there. It's like the parking lot.
Yeah.
The only traffic flow is going to Robinson, and that's not very
Not good, yeah. Okay, so the question was, right, yeah, good question. The question is recall the service road options or service road alternative that's proposed in all options is to get that service road further south on both sides. And remember that orange drawing that showed the land acquisition requires more land. Why do that? Yeah, so the main reason is safety, which is if you're coming, I think I mentioned this, but if you're coming on ETH1 east from Bannatyre and you want to turn to the Carberry, as soon as you're done, then you're merging back on top of that intersection. And so there's been lots of close calls and collisions that service, even though it's rare, but of course we try to do it better and minimize the number of times somebody has to get out of close call. Close calls can cause subsequent collisions. So we just really need to get that service road away from that merge in both cases. And even though you're right, it is illegal, in fact, really does own the East Mountain Lake Service is a Robin's Nest, but a service Robin's Nest, so, you can't necessarily remove them unless you purchase the Robin's Nest as opposed to you have no service to that possible, but that's not what's proposed. So yeah, I think they do have to be great, but that separation is yeah, and I think we've heard from others that there are visions.
It's a parking lot.
Yeah. There's a home and a farm operation, a yard site on the other direction. So if there were nothing there, I think it would be a consideration to maybe not have what we have is not service, but they are service something called small business. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, just a couple comments. The safety thing where you had the different colored box, those were spared potentials. And the suggestion that we have to add call more, the lesser severity, and more chances of collision.
Yeah, more
especially foggy mornings, with lots of them here. I'd be scared to go across the highway. So it's bad enough that you only have to cross the meridian. Now you have to cross 2 lanes, and I don't know if it's slowing down coming at me.
Yeah, I understand.
Another thing is, we increased our snow clearing problem by more than double. Keeping extra lanes open, the U-turn open. I don't know what everybody's feeling on that one. To me, it doesn't make sense. I'm a firm believer in lining the intersection. And that highway was built in 9 remember that. The reason is that site is because it's designed to have an overpass. Now that's up by the wayside, long path. But that's why it is. And I don't see any problem with just widening those so you can get turned in there, straighten up, and have 1 or 2 more behind.
You're pointing to the white list for those reasons. Yeah, okay. And I guess just to, let's clarify, on that question of maintenance, maybe the team can help. Like, square foot of maintenance, I think, split is probably more, actually, more maintenance on split, but I'm not sure. And then the curves certainly are harder to maintain with that. So, yeah. These are good points that are noted as this.
That's also visibility.
Yeah, visibility.
I'm scared to hell out of having to go across 2 lanes twice.
Yeah, I guess the difference is you're more at speed versus, visibility wise.
If you have a heavy truck, you're not.
Okay.
You can't accelerate there.
Yeah, you would prefer to, in the widening in that case, it's not very visible to the oncoming, at least you can get across the versus being merging a couple times. I understand. Yeah.
That's no problem, lighting, that's my.
Yeah. You gotta have it right.
There's quite clear from all the things we presented the outside. It's probably going to be the one. It's not a new design, it's the industrial. So with that back, you start with 1 to 5 is negligible compared to most of the other intersections that have instances. So why have we never used it before if this is our best idea?
Yeah, the question, why haven't we used our technical work? Certainly there were times when we didn't use roundabout before. There were used it for however many years. So, part of this is the evolution of climate in Canada versus prairies, change very easily in the prairies. So I'm not sure why we haven't used them before. There were times when we didn't use roundabouts either, and now people are starting to use them and starting to think we should have a roundabout here. So I don't think there's any particularly willful reason not to use it because it's bad or because it's really bad idea. It just hasn't been implemented for all reasons that other things have been implemented here. But it could explain why. But I don't, it's not because someone said those arguments are terrible, it's not losing them. It's just hit the radar. Okay, I'm gonna be passing this around now a little bit, just somebody make a good suggestion, good question there.
I get pretty loud.
Yeah, you're pretty loud.
So just a question on the widened, the first two. Would that, the north and southbound lanes, if you're turning left, would that include, like if vehicles are turning like, you know, left or go east or west on the highway, would there be a left-hand turn?
Like acceleration.
Like, so if I was going towards Brandon, but someone was going straight, you know, they can, if there was a semi trying to turn left there, you know what I mean, you can, instead of waiting behind them, because that's the biggest problem right now is you have to wait quite a while if there's a semi going north or south, because that takes some time to go through, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so I'll try to maybe tell me if I got it right. You're on PTH5 and the widening split options. You're coming from Carberry, you're gonna go across and you wanna go to Brandon. But there's a semi in that refuge in the middle between east and westbound lanes. One can go straight and you're stuck behind them waiting for them to go straight so you can go to Brandon. Right? Got it? Is there a way to get past the semi or it's not designed that way? Currently.
There's enough storage in the median in both options, right? It still comes down to at some point it fills up, right? But it's, people shouldn't be entering the intersection to kind of block it off anyways. Donovan talked about education. No matter what option gets selected here, there needs to be additional education to remind people on how to operate, you know, highway intersections and safe ways to enter them and approach them.
So what I'm saying is like, the semi's here, it's gonna go north, right? I'm going toward Brandon, so instead of waiting for him to go forward, will there be a, so I can just
No, you would have to wait, the semi's gotta go through, and it's one at a time through the intersection.
Yeah, you could also imagine that if you did allow that, tell me I'm just talking like a driver, not an educated engineer. If that semi was going straight and just when you wanted to get by it and merge on, it went and you're a bit blind because of that semi. But I think visibility would be, yeah. So the answer, not necessarily. Yeah, he was okay. He understood.
When you say that you did a study as to the traffic and the amount of traffic going through that intersection, how did you do that? And for how long did you actually sit there and take them?
Yeah, so this is about how we did the traffic study, obviously not the long version of this traffic study, but at least the structure of it, how you get the counts.
That's a good question, and any of all of these studies where we're looking at potential changes to infrastructure, we want to make sure that we understand the existing traffic conditions, the types of traffic using the intersections, when are the peak periods. So it's our practice to do traffic counts. We use the video cameras that are installed at the intersection, and they collect video, which is then used to is processed into traffic counts that tell us the turning movements, left turns, throughs, right turns in all directions at the intersection, and also allow us to understand the classification of vehicles, the number of trucks, and those are done typically for 2 days of 14-hour counts to capture the busiest traffic hours, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. And in this case, we collected the traffic in July. Considered, if you look at traffic patterns, seasonal factors, that's the peak traffic in the summer. And so we collected those volumes and found the peak hours for the AM and those counts for the traffic analysis.
I find it difficult for you to be able to do a true analysis when it's a farming community and you didn't take into seeding or harvest
Yeah, the question is about the seasonal trucks and particularly the potato hauling season in the fall, correct? And yes, that was also considered, in addition to the intersection turn movement counts that we did, we also used traffic data. There is a permanent count station just down the road to the west on Highway 1, and it collects traffic 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. And we looked at the truck patterns and factored that into our analysis as well. We also talked to stakeholders about particularly the potato hauling to the cane factory of South Mountain TH5, and developed what we call the seasonal truck haul traffic volumes, and use those in the analysis as well.
Okay, come on over there.
Say, my question is, has the type of traffic been compared between Saskatchewan, Saskatoon, West Montreal, to the type of traffic that's being compared here? We have going through our corner, we have, of course, industrial traffic, we have Trans-Canada traffic, we also have our children going through there, we have a community located, 3,000 plus people within 2 miles of the highway. In Saskatoon, is it an industrial area that you're using this in? What is around the archive in Saskatoon compared to here? Because different places in this area.
That's a great point. I mean, obviously the whole, we're not just looking at Saskatchewan and saying they did it, we should do it. Clearly the 2 hours of data and other things are coming into play, not just saying they did it, we should do it. It's a great question. In terms of that example, we haven't pulled all the US and other world examples, we pulled one that was close to us to show how it functions. But it's a great question. Are other things nearby, like they are here, other schools and so forth? Is that particular example for Saskatoon a helpful one in the setup? I'm not sure. Comment on the setting there in Saskatchewan.
So, as you can imagine, every intersection everywhere has got its own differences, right? Everything's different here. You can compare one down the road here anywhere, right? So, part of the factors you do take a look at is the counts that Diana mentioned. There's the permanent count stations. There's the video counts that we did during the time, talking with stakeholders, types of trucks, but also putting that into modeling software as well to look at gaps but also doing a bit of a sensitivity analysis to say, okay, these are the numbers now, these are the numbers in 2054, increase the truck volumes, increase the truck volumes, and see how it operates, and to see that there's a level of satisfaction that, hey, this is going to operate or it's not. We wouldn't be putting it as an option on the table if it wasn't going to operate with those kinds of traffic volumes. So we did look at those factors because it is certainly very unique, the circumstance with the canes, the potato haul, and of course the agricultural equipment that's been talked about crossing the highway.
So there would be differences between the two, yeah. Okay. I know it's tapering a little bit, but we don't want to stop too soon. Just looking at the archive, high-risk drivers, you're young and you're older, I'd avoid that intersection like the plague. There's a lot of elderly people died that day. Over the years, there will be a lot more of that intersection. More conflict, lower, uncomfortable driving. I'd be scared if I'm one of those drivers. Okay, thank you. The other comment, if you didn't catch the commentary being, very older drivers have to go from this, the sentiment that we think that might be the case, to really knowing is that would that be the case, which one is better in all respects, but point taken is consider elderly drivers as well as new drivers.
Just getting back to the difference between the hard cuts and widening and grading. My understanding, and I can't see it any other way, our two access roads east and west across would be permanently closed.
Yes.
Is that the same for the widening of the bridges? And why?
Okay, so the question was, yes, the answer is there currently the closure proposed at the west and the east access roads is the same for all. But as I've said, and I'll continue to repeat, we've heard loud and clear about that closure, particularly the west, and we need to consider whether that can be done. Yes, we agree. Yeah. So I can't really answer why, because the first question is the same.
Well, I understand that there are extended all.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why do you want to
Yeah, well, it's the, like I said earlier, you make an intersection safer, and you want to use that intersection because it's safer. No, but I think that's, like I said a few times now, right, about, the problem, running from the answer. The problem, one of the problems that I identified, which you're now re-raising, is the ability for ag equipment to get across. So we understood, yeah. Yeah, no, legitimate point. That's why I layered it in, but now this is the fifth time. We need to do it at that. Idea. Others? Yeah, your neighbors want to use this.
My question's about the RCAT. Before you make a decision, are you going to be talking to the people in Saskatoon or wherever you talked about this RCAT before you make a decision? If you said they have their speed limit down to 8, you said you don't need to change because of safety, the speed limit should be staying the same, but they put it down to 8, or you want to wait till they put this back up to 100 or 110 before you make any decisions on using that design?
Yeah, I think I mentioned the team had actually gone there and talked to them and has followed up with them in numerous conversations. So yeah, they'll continue to stay in touch. We won't make a decision here in Manitoba based on what they're doing over there. That's just the information that's helpful. Larry, do you want to add anything?
So one thing they are doing, and I can see this happening here as well, no matter which option is happening, is still doing a safety study, kind of a post-safety study. So they've implemented, it's been in for about a year and a half. So they've done a safety study, a video, what they call a video conflict analysis, where they do some recordings and look and see, look at post calls and that sort of thing. Indications right now are looking favorable that it's there, but they're still studying it, and so we're waiting to hear back from them on that sort of result. But I can see that being an approach for this intersection, which options select.
After a year, they still have it at 80 kilometers per hour, and have they returned to speed limit?
I don't believe they've changed anything from the correct. Yeah.
So then logically, wouldn't just change it to speed limit to 80 and achieve the same thing and not do the roadway?
You're asking if the logic suggests don't do any of it, just lower the speed limit?
But if you do all the work and then have to lower the speed limit to 80 anyway, why not start with lowering the speed limit to 80 and making data rather than change it?
So there's a couple of threads to pull on there, right? So again, part of their safety study as well will be looking at close calls with speed differential and speed changes. So again, we don't have the full results of that sort of analysis and study, but the RCAT is implemented there. So going back to kind of the slides talking about the conflict points, a lot of those major conflict points are now gone. So we now have medium or minor conflict points. So those speed differentials can potentially be less dramatic, right? But again, it depends on how they're operating, it depends on enforcement, it depends on a number of different factors. So
there's always apples and oranges a little bit with this sort of stuff, but again, they're still doing the safety stuff, so we're having ongoing discussions with them on that. Okay, coming up on 8, we're going to stick around. We put some key boards up at the back if you want to